Good morning. We will call the June 28th Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. If you join us for the pledge in a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First order of business, we have recognition of a retiring county employee.
Mr. Chair, I'm the one designated to speak here, but on behalf of our entire IT team who's in the audience, not because we're anticipating a lot of technical problems this morning, but we want to give some recognition to our retiring IT director. Jay Sekink has actually been in county government in IT for about 25 years. He was previously with Stearns County before he joined us, but he put in about a decade of service to Crow Wing County, and he really did great work in taking our IT practice into the next realm and really professionalizing that service that we provide to our customers being all of you and all of the employees and the services that we provide here at Crow Wing County. He has put a really great emphasis on the security of our systems, redundancy, backups, fiber. The fact that we have multiple rings of fiber coming into this organization is a direct testament to Jay's efforts that he put forward. And he really put our first steps into our IT strategic plan to get us poised and ready for the future. So when he did decide to retire, he left us in very capable hands of his replacement, but we really want to thank him for the efforts that he has put forward for the county and wish him well in his retirement. Thank you, Jay. And I believe you have a certificate there, if you'd like to present that to Jay. Jay, if you'd come forward and we'll get a quick photo. And it would not be Jay if we didn't get a little bit of cell phone ringing there.
Crisis. The system crashed.
You're going up front.
Let's go right over here.
Jay, they have you poised for like a 30-minute speech, you know?
You know me, I'm a man of few words. Thank you. I want to say thank you for supporting that. Awesome. Too wide. Oh, we got a good friend.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Got it.
Jay, congratulations.
Thanks, Scott. Yep, just appreciate it.
Oh, you bet.
It's been great working with you guys all the years.
You're the good return.
Oh, thanks.
We're taking one with the staff.
I wanted to, yes, give all the staff people.
And then you can get a speech.
What do you think about that? So everyone's gonna see the actual brains behind the operation here. It's the team, not the leaders, right?
Wow.
Jason, get up in front.
Jason, up front.
All right, we'll turn a little bit. That right there.
Beautiful. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Next item, open forum.
I think you got one more coming up here.
Okay, good idea. what did she?
I put it on the bottom of the file.
And a reminder that the polls are open now, so there'll be no time for political comments during open forum. That said, we'll start with Jacob White, I believe. Good morning.
Good morning. First off, I'd like to say congratulations on Jay. 25 years. Those are big shoes to fill. Hi, I'm Jacob White, and I live in Brainerd, Minnesota. I'm running for District 3, Crow Wing County Commissioner, and today I'll be discussing previous actions from the board, election integrity, and request for commissioners to submit an item to the next agenda. So first, I'd like to discuss the events that transpired in a recent board meeting. As you know, Mr. Scheffler has attended many of our board meetings, airing his grievances in all sorts of ways. Sometimes he makes a lot of sense, and sometimes he doesn't make a lot of sense. But whatever he does outside the threats of violence is his prerogative as his First Amendment. And what you did during open forum, calling for a recess and being suggested a second, is in my opinion, a little petty. You have a responsibility to the people to allow people to air their grievances. You couldn't let this man do his routine for only 3 minutes and sit in truth and confidence. Instead, you let a lame duck call for a recess and a tantrum. All I can do right now is wag my finger in protest and let the natural set of events take place, whatever that may be. I don't appreciate his costumes and his displays, however right or wrong he is, but I expected more from his body. Next, I'd like to address an issue this board has been approached with many times, and that this issue is election integrity. I believe a considerable amount of people have been shaken by not only the 2020 election and accusations of domestic and Chinese meddling, but also the 2016 election with accusations of Russian meddling, and a lack of transparency that we are all getting. So much so that there is currently a grassroots movement all across the United States of America getting local county boards to act on election issues, because they are well positioned to address these concerns since they administer the elections. A petition was created in October of 2021 to find a resolution to these concerns in the form of an audit. A meeting was held and the board said they had no authority to reopen and audit the results so far from the election. But the board would send a letter to the Secretary of State requesting such actions be made. The Secretary of State denied this request, citing no real reason for such an audit. Well, this didn't change people's minds. You still have people coming into this room regularly and calling for more action, but Paul spoke on behalf of the board and has stated he doesn't know what else he could do within the confines of the law.
We got 30 seconds left.
So I asked Paul here to work with me and the concerned citizens this following week to draft a resolution to add to the agenda a hand-counted election in 2022 due to people's concerns with the lack of transparency of the Dominion voting machines. This isn't a solve it be-all, but it's a step in the right direction. There are many questions about the election that this board can't address, and it's a state issue.
Your 3 minutes is up, sir.
All right, thank you.
Next up, Mark Olson.
Mark Olson, 12336 Thompson Road. I want to thank you guys for moving the budget and personnel meeting into the county board meeting where it should have been to begin with, instead of down in a little room. The only concerns I have in those meetings, the public can't respond, I get that, but we can't hear. And I addressed that at the meeting when you had your recess. Here's the problem. You guys don't speak into your microphones. Now, we hear Paul and we hear Steve because they have louder voices. We can't hear the administrator and we can't hear the other ones. So I would suggest that you would speak into your microphones at those meetings. So I want to thank you and give you credence for moving the meetings. And also I want to address why you don't have it on YouTube. You used to have it on YouTube, and you just took it off. That seems a little strange to me. The other thing I want to address is what the gentleman just did. I don't know him. How many of you people know about cast votes for records, CVRs. I'm assuming nobody other than the county people know that. I would check that out, as I addressed Paul last time when he addressed Mrs. Erickson at the budget meeting about the cost of the machines. Okay, that's a good thing, but it's the machines that are the problem. And I don't think you guys understand that. It's in the machines that is where the problem is. You need to go to a paper ballot. You need to, just like the last gentleman said, have a hand recount. And Paul also addressed at the June 6th meeting that you guys are the governing board. You made a huge mistake when you sent it down to the SOS, Secretary of State. And it was not the law, it was an opinion, and your attorney said it was his opinion. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. Jeff Chesot.
Good morning, Jeff Chesak, 511 D Street, Brainerd. You had the celebration of the employee in IT retiring, and that kind of is why I'm here. On the same note as Mr. Olson, the email that you all received back on the 12th or 13th of January asking from the Therese Norwood, asking, directed from the chair, Mr. Haug, how would you like to proceed on the budget committee meetings? And at that time, you were given three choices. Keep it as is. And in that note, I want to thank Mr. Coring for wanting to keep it as it was, having it in this room, having it on YouTube live streamed. That's where you guys do all your deliberation. Everybody can see and hear how do you come to your conclusions, because after you do that, you have everything on a consent calendar. For instance, when you hired the chief deputy, that was discussed at length at a personnel committee meeting. When you had it on your meeting 2 weeks ago, I think it was, if you didn't know what that was about and not gone to the website to look at the documents, you wouldn't have had a clue what that was. The consent calendar, chief deputy, boom. That's it. So it's deceptive in a way. I don't want to accuse you of trying to hide anything, but what is the reason for not keeping it available for the public, having a record of it? I know there's no law that requires you to do that, just at this meeting. There's no law that requires you to have this on YouTube or any recording of it. But you're gracious enough to the people you represent to do that. You have no deliberation in many of your meetings to come to your conclusions and your decisions. You do it all in your personnel and budget, and your county committee of the whole meeting you have put on YouTube. Thank you. And that was, I thank Mr. Coring again for having that done. That was one benefit coming out of COVID-19. That was one benefit. You guys got that going, and then as soon as the threat, if you call it that, ended or ceased or lightened up, you went right back to keeping their meetings behind closed doors in the administrators, locked doors in the administrators' conference room. That's not how you're supposed to, how do I put this? You want to represent the people. Show them what you're doing. Let it all, open it up. Show them what you're doing. Let them hear how you talk about things. And you shouldn't have to go into an informal meeting, discuss everything, come to your conclusion. I know you don't make the decision there, but that's kind of semantics, because you do make your decision because it's on the consent calendar. It wouldn't be there if you hadn't already given approval. We all know that. So, and I think Mr. Brecken even voted differently to have it on Teams, which would be recorded and put on YouTube. I don't know how that would work, but I thank him for doing that as well. At least he had the idea to open it up and show people what you're doing. Again, I don't know what Teams would be on YouTube.
Jeff, we need to wrap it up here.
Okay. Thank you much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
All right, Doug Kern.
Doug Kern, Crow Wing Township. We have good news. Shanghai came out of lockdown a week ago Friday. 14 million people in a 2-month lockdown. My sister in Cambodia is going to be going into a lockdown real soon, and they don't know how long that will be. The 2022 election, there is grave concern because we will be in lockdown in October. I would say probably October. What happens in the Asian countries always follows 5 months later here. You go May, June, July, August, September, October, and November. October. There is concern for what happened in 2020. Even if we can't change anything, to look at what happened in 2020. Last night I watched a 2-hour program. It wasn't a program, it was a conference down in Arizona. And the legislators looked at more stuff coming out about the Dominion machines, different machines that they have, and the issues that they had. We are concerned about 2022 because we don't want a repeat of 2020. And anything you guys can do to help that, we sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That's it for open forum. Next on our agenda is review and approve of the June 14th County Board meeting and the Board of Appeals and Equalization meetings minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Franzine.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Barrows.
Mr. Chair, is that a motion for both of them?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Review today's agenda. Any additions?
Mr. Chair, we do want to put an emergency declaration on your agenda today. I don't know if the sheriff wants to cover that, if John's coming under his report, but it would be for the most recent rainstorms that went through the area. We have had damage, most notably power lines and things of that sort. So we do believe that we will hit the state threshold for 75% reimbursement of those public costs associated with those storms. So we need an emergency declaration to do that. Typically, the board chair has the authority to do that, but when we have the board in session, we choose to go this route.
Motion to approve with addition.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Franzine, second by Commissioner Coring to approve today's agenda with the addition of the emergency declaration. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda. Any questions? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I've got a question. I guess I don't know who to direct it to, so I'm going to direct it to the county administrator. So I noticed in looking through the bills, we're going to approve the bills, there's paying for somebody's, in community services, paying for somebody's insurance, car insurance, paying for the China buffet for $40, a haircut for $60, movie theater for $35, Olive Garden, TJ Maxx. Is that normal practice?
I don't know the answer to that question, so let me do a little bit of research and I'll find out.
Okay. Thank you.
If you can give me afterwards the specific list of them, I'll have
It's a list I turned in.
Okay. Happy to look into it.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good. Any other questions regarding the consent agenda?
Motion to approve if no other questions.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coring, second by Commissioner Franzine. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 905, public hearing, petition to vacate Mulham Road. Is that, who's,
So, Mr. Chair, that's a public hearing, then it would be in order for a motion, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we go into the public hearing for the petition to vacate, how do you pronounce it?
Malum Road.
Malum Road.
Second.
okay, a motion by Commissioner Coring, second by Commissioner Barrows to move into open session public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, if you do want an introduction to the topic, I see that we have Glenn Schuman online. I presume he's representing the petitioner.
That is accurate, thank you.
And he may want to give you a little bit of background on what the request is.
If you would, please.
All right, thank you, and good morning, everyone. We represent Tyler and Brandy Piltz. You'll note that in the application to vacate Malum Road, that most of the neighbors along the Malum Road have joined in the petition. The motivation for Mr. and Mrs. Piltz bringing this request is they're planning on building a house on the site that they own, and the location of the house is dependent on the vacation of Mullum Road. The setback is 35 feet from the existing road. It would be 10 feet if Mullum Road was vacated. The Mullum Road, as you may know, no longer provides access to the lake due to a previous vacation of Sugar Bush Trail, and that vacation interrupts continuous access to the lake. The road is not developed. It's historically not been used for access to the lake, and with the vacation of Sugar Bush Trail, there's clearly no intent to use the road for that purpose in the future, since access is cut off. There were 3 letters, and I'm sure staff will be talking about these, but there are 3 letters submitted in connection with this request. The DNR submitted a letter, and they state in their letter they do not oppose vacation. They admit there's no evidence of use of the road. They do not advocate improving the road. They did have a suggestion that the road may still serve the public. However, they failed to recognize that the vacation of Sugar Bush Trail makes that impossible going forward, since the access is now cut off to the lake. The highway staff report raised a concern, actually stated that they confirmed the road is not needed for transportation needs, not needed for access to adjacent parcels or other public uses. They did express a concern regarding the northerly limits of the vacated road, given future expansion of County Road 115. We agree with that concern, and we've arrived at what I think is a mutually acceptable legal description of the vacated road that carves out that area that would be used in the future for County Road 115. The highway staff also noted a report in the report that there was a low area which appears to serve as a regional drainage point and a wetland. The land staff report also acknowledges no known public use of Mullum Road. They had a concern about the wetland. They had suggested that a wetland delineation might need to be performed. However, we know of no desire to fill in the wetland, which again appears to serve as a regional drainage point, wetland. Anyone wishing to fill in the wetland in the future can certainly apply for a de minimis exemption at that time. Even if the county were inclined to look into that issue further at this time, we would ask that Mullum Road along Mr. and Mrs. Pilt's property down to the lake be immediately vacated nevertheless, because that land is not impacted by the wetland. So I don't think there's any reason to further delay Pilt's construction to review the filling in of the wetland or to explore a possibility of filling it in, since no one is requesting it at this time. I know that Mr. and Mrs. Piltz have some comments that they would like to add, and I'm here and available to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody in the public?
Good morning. My name is Brandy Piltz. My husband and I currently reside in Big Lake, which is located in Sherburne County. We purchased a lot on North Long Lake about a year and a half ago. And that lot, as Glenn referenced, shares a property line with Mullum Road, which is an undeveloped road. We had watched the April 12th board meeting when our petition was read before the board. And at that time, the board was voting on vacating Ash Avenue. And I believe the county administrator gave a brief history on a number of ice roads that are in the area. And I believe Mullum Road is one of those ice roads as well. And we are just asking for the board to vacate that road to provide more flexibility on that property line and that setback.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Tim?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I just wanted to clarify maybe one of the statements that Mr. Schuman, or add to statements that Mr. Schuman just mentioned about the Highway Department's comments on this vacation request. And it specifically states in here that no future access be allowed to this parcel. We were very careful about access control along our roads. Your policies include not creating new accesses where they don't. So he overlooked that in his summary of our comments. I wanted to make sure that you're aware of our desire to continue to restrict access. All those lots do have access through easements of record across the other properties.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair, could we pull up the map so I could just get kind of a visual on that?
This one?
Yeah. So I guess I need a little more explanation. So what are we vacating? That yellow part? No.
No. Can you pull up the other one
Yeah,
with the blue?
I can explain this one if you'd like.
Yes, would you please?
Just, this is the part Mr. Schuman talked about, an exception, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory, is that we are currently looking to reconstruct County Road 115, and we've been very busy, or the staff's been very busy purchasing right-of-way. And if this was on private ownership, Malem Road, we would have actually engaged the owner and purchased the property from them. And however, this is public property, so we didn't have an action. But now that this has come forward, we want to make sure that that is not become private property, which then we would maybe have to compensate for in the future if we make other expansions to County Road 115 or these residents come forward. So that's the purpose of why I made this graphic.
So, Mr. Chair, so the yellow part, the county would retain as road right-of-way if the board grants this?
Correct.
Okay.
no, to that other map, or just be able to, I had a,
Mr. Chair, to accomplish that exception, that yellow highlighted area, to retain it as part of the County Road 115 right-of-way, we did receive a corrected legal description this morning from the attorneys at Moss and Barnett. So if you do take action on this, and you want that excluded, I would ask that it be subject to review and interpretation by the county attorney's office to make sure it's a good legal description.
Mr. Chair, if I can ask a question. So we're vacating this entire piece of property, right? From 115 to the shoreline? We're not getting
No.
stuck like we did? No, we're not?
It would be from 115, edge of the new right-of-way,
Right?
to North Long Lake, excepting that portion of Sugarbush Trail that has already been vacated, which you can see is where that split is in the middle.
Okay.
That's previously vacated, but I think, talking with Don this morning, he can represent this better than I can, but we probably can get by with the legal description that just runs from the new right-of-way to North Long Lake. If you vacate a road twice, it's still vacated. Just makes it easier.
I didn't want to get in a position where we did last April where we vacated a portion of it.
This is the
and
entire
not the
road.
entire piece.
Mr. Chair, so what would, nobody's accessing this property now to get to their property?
Not that we're aware of.
Road's on the other side.
What would be the purpose, if I could ask you a question, what would be the purpose of vacating it? Why are you asking for this? I just, once we do it, I mean, it's
yes.
done, and that's why I'm
We're
just
asking for it because we're the lot closest or on the lake. So our property line that's shared, we have a 35-foot setback because this is deemed a road. It's a wooded lot. There's no trail, no road. And by vacating it, I believe how that's handled, then the road that exists is split in half. Half would be added to our lot, half would be added to the other neighbor's lot. But That would give us flexibility on, our plan is to build a garage with the guest quarters now, and then in the future, build a home. And we want to be able to place the garage so that there's still room for a home down the line.
The only correction I would make is, it is typically split half. It depends if this was part of a plat and it was, all of the road was in one side of the plat, that could affect it, but typically it is split down the middle. I don't think we take any issue with how that split occurs, because once we vacate it, we walk away.
And I see there's a petition, but there's anybody in opposition?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Is there anybody in opposition?
We have gotten no correspondence in opposition to the request.
Any other questions? Don, do you have anything? As far as the legal description are we?
Actually, Rob Hall at the Highway Department had coordinated with a local surveyor, created a legal description. We sent that down yesterday to the attorneys for the petitioners. They reviewed it, sent us back something 7:30 this morning. I got it to Rob. He's re-reviewed their new description. His only question was about the vacated portion of Sugar Bush Road already. Otherwise, he said the legal description we currently have protects our County Road 115 interest the way we want to. So, from my perspective, it's probably good to go forward.
Got a good description.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
I just don't know that Therese has that description yet, but I did bring it with me.
Okay.
A small correction to what I said. We did receive a letter from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. They do not oppose the proposed vacation of the road abutting the public waters of North Long Lake, and then they encourage you to retain it for 1, 2, 3 reasons that I can outline if you wish, but it is included in your packet.
Mr. Chair, so they encourage us to retain the property?
Yes, they say they do not oppose it, and they encourage us to retain it anyway.
But that's none of their business.
That is your call, Mr. Chair.
Mind their own damn business.
Not for me to say.
All right. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I would move to close the public hearing on the vacation of Mullum Road.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coring, second by Commissioner Barrows to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And I would make a motion, and normally I do not like to vacate roads, but this one is separated anyway, doesn't get you to the lake. It's just 2 pieces, so I will make the motion to vacate Mullum Road with the retention of the yellow portion and with the new description that was given, that we haven't seen, but you have.
There, you can see it, it's right here.
Would you want to read that description?
Trust me, you don't want to read the description.
I'll second her motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Franzine, second by Commissioner Barrows.
Mr. Chair, just for clarity, we're going to take a look at the resolution in your packet. Can you pull that up? There it is. Now therefore, it is hereby ordered that the following described road is hereby vacated. We're not going to have Mullum Road beginning from Ojibwe Road to North Long Lake. We're going to have the legal description that Don has in there after he's approved it, and that's what will be in there. And so your action should be contingent upon that addition.
And that is what my motion is.
I think that's what your motion was.
Okay,
Want to make sure.
second is good with
Absolutely.
that? All right. Any other discussion?
Can I just ask a question? So then, if we look into it further, if Don looks into it and it looks like some changes need to be made, he's authorized to make those changes.
As long as it's consistent with the concept plan that we've reviewed. If there are significant substantive changes, we would have to bring that back for your review and consideration.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. County engineer.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I want to bring forward this morning to you a new fuel sales agreement that I've been working on the last several months. We have a request from an outside entity to purchase fuel from us. And that's what's kind of driving this new fuel sales agreement, is to put something in place that gives us guidelines for fuel sales to outside entities. They're really basically customers. We currently have 7 customers right now that we sell fuel to through our county fuel system. None of those are on a current contract at all right now. They've been in place before I started. We want to get something in place that just gives us a guideline and a direction to move forward in fuel sales moving forward. So the agreement spells out our scope of what we want to do, our cost, gives us termination terms, just an agreement between the 2 entities that we want to move forward with. Right now, I'm looking at doing a 1-year term with all 8 of these entities and review those on a yearly basis. We can move forward from there and move them to a year, 2 years, 3 years, however we deem where we want the contract to go. We haven't had any issues in the past with these customers. Things have moved pretty smoothly, payment-wise, billing-wise. That has been pretty easy thing that has occurred for us. There isn't much that we have to do for it. It takes some of our staff time, but we're looking at recouping those costs in this contract, in this agreement, moving forward. We've collected a 10% upcharge over the years with these entities, and that's worked out very well. Nobody's disputing any of that or anything with us. We are looking at introducing a new account setup fee, which is $300. I've taken into factor our staff time to set up these accounts, and figuring off a shop time, what we charge per shop hour, we're looking at about the $300 range for that fee to charge initially to get them set up for those admin fees. The 10% upcharge, that covers our admin fees monthly. That also covers our maintenance fees for the system. That covers our inspection fees on a monthly basis and a yearly basis. So we're trying to capture those costs that are included in that fuel system and pass that along to our customers rather than the county eating that fee. So, any questions on the fuel sales agreement?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner. So, just to, I will say that I think government has to get, I realize that that we have to get smarter. And when, we're working with the city of Brainerd, when the guys are cutting the grass here, they go over and they cut the grass there, we have a contract with them, and it just makes total sense. But I just want to make sure, and I'm assuming that this takes care that we're not, it's not costing us money, and you're assuring us that you've factored that all in there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've taken into consideration the amount that we've spent in our fuel system alone, the cost of repairs, all the testing fees for each site, our maintenance staff time. I've collected all that information and compiled it. It's actually a pretty low dollar amount on a monthly basis of the time that we spend. We're not trying to collect it on one customer. We're trying to spread it across all of our customers countywide that we actually charge fuel to. So the actual cost per month is relatively low. It equals out to be almost like $12.50 a month per customer. As far as, sorry about that. I take that back. That's for the $300 fee. Or no, sorry. Let me look here. I'm nervous.
While Joe is doing that, Mr. Chair, what I would say is, to the extent that we are recouping our maintenance costs and our capital costs associated with the fuel system through these contracts, we're helping to defray our own costs for this system, which we need for our own purposes. Yep. And so having other customers not just pay the price of the gallon of diesel or gas that they're purchasing from us, but also helping to cover some of our overhead costs helps to make it cheaper for us. And so that's why we think this is a good deal. It is reminiscent of the contract with the city of Brainerd for maintenance services. If in fact you can't come out ahead in these kinds of arrangements, then it probably doesn't make good sense, does it? Just being nice.
So then, Mr. Chair, I would, I think the city of Brainerd, we're all in this together trying to save the taxpayers money. So I would assume that, being that they want to buy it from us, they're kind of saving money for the taxpayers also, correct?
Yep.
Otherwise, they'd just be going to the gas station, correct?
Yes, and that's the situation they're up against, is they're trying to save some money for their taxpayers.
Okay,
They do have to be a tax entity, a tax
Exempt?
exempt entity like us, otherwise they can't purchase fuel from us.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
That's all I
Kind of
got.
leads into my question. Of these 7 customers, are they all public agencies, or there's no private?
no private involved, no.
So we're not making any, I guess, advantage to someone at a lower rate of fuel cost?
No.
I don't think it would be appropriate for us to take on private customers.
Exactly. Well, that's where I was going with this, because I don't want to, one, take business away from the private dealers, but yet create an unfair advantage for one over the other, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That's all I've got.
Any other questions?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering, why have we not had a fuel agreement before? This is now our 8th customer. Did we just, was it working so well that we didn't think of having it? Or why did we, when the school district decided to request a purchase, why are we now doing this?
I believe first, when we first started this selling to fuel to these customers, they were in direct relation to the county. Majority of them right now are with the city of Cross Lake, and I'm assuming that's part of our joint facility up there, that's why they were brought on board. And that was before my time, so I can't speak to why that was done at that time. But I'm assuming that's what the reasoning was, is that when we went into that joint facility with them, with the city of Cross Lake, that we added those to our fuel system. They requested it at that time. The other ones are actually here. Brainerd Transit is one that we fuel. That was a few years ago. I think back in 2018 or 19, we added them to the list. They just requested, and that was during my time, and that's probably on me that we pushed it through and set them up, and there was no question about it. That probably should have been brought to the board's attention at that time. This request, now it's at our attention, and we're bringing it forward to make you guys aware of it, make sure that this is the direction you want to go, and this is where we need to be with it. So.
Thank you. I always think it's a good idea to have a signed agreement so that it's all written out and there aren't any questions later.
Yep, it spells out what our intents are and what we should be looking at, and vice versa from their standpoint also.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, after hearing all the conversation, I would make the motion to approve the fuel sales contract to other governmental agencies.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Coring. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just stay on the county engineer for a second and just have Tim come up for just a couple of minutes. As I'm sure we all know, there was a tragic accident on Thompson Road out in my commissioner district, and my constituents are quite concerned. The chairman of the Long Lake Township Board sent an email, and I'd like to have the sheriff comment on that too when it's his time. But I guess I'm asking the county engineer, I know there was a young boy that was killed down on County Road 2 and State Highway 25 not too long ago, and maybe you can just kind of explain, I don't know, just to try to let people know that we're just not doing anything. We look at these accidents to make sure that we can try to prevent accidents if there's something that we need to change. I know that I already got a letter in the mail that you are requesting the Commissioner of Transportation do a speed study on that road, so obviously you're already on it, but if you can just explain what we do or what we can do to try to make sure people are safe on our roads.
Sure, I'll start off by saying, and I think not very many times I can speak for the sheriff, but we take all of these serious crashes and fatalities very seriously, and we look at them. We're part of a team, and the law enforcement is part of a team, and EMS is part of a team called the Crow Wing County Passenger Safety Coalition. And they gather information first and then look at the causes of these and see if they're preventable from our perspective, the engineering perspective, to see if there's something going on that we may not aware of that may have contributed to a crash or fatality. And this one is no different. This one actually happened, I believe, the day before the last Passenger Safety Coalition, so they've not had the chance to gather the information. It was mentioned, but like I said, it was not quite ready yet to talk about. They will in future meetings after the police reports are gathered. The first responders get to document what they saw and observed and those things. So that will happen, and we will be at the table, and the sheriff and other law enforcement will be at the table to try to figure out what may have happened. I've been out there a couple times, as recently as yesterday. I was walking around the site and just trying to figure out what may have happened from the engineering side of it. There's many other factors that could have happened, but my place is the engineering. And so we looked at things like no passing zones, what we call sight distance, if you can see over the crest of curves, and things like that, and other configurations of the road. And my initial assessment is it's not obvious from our perspective that there was a road factor that happened. That's initial. Now, we haven't seen the police reports and things like that yet. That may shed some light on things that we would look at further from an engineering standpoint. As you mentioned, we've already reached out to MnDOT, as you all know, who is our group that puts together speed studies. So one of the things that the chairman of the board of Long Lake Township had requested was to take a look at speeds. And it's a common request to look if those are a contributing factor. And I think it's a good idea to take a look. It is narrow. That particular road is narrow. And we want to see if maybe speed was a factor from the environment perspective. If the environment is encouraging high speeds, which could have been a contributing factor. The sheriff and their analysis of the skids and stuff like that can maybe determine what the actual speeds of the vehicle were. That's not my field of expertise. It's the environmental factors that contribute to people going faster.
And I would just say that one thing that I've observed is, I will say that, I'll point out again, I was wrong about the sales tax because we're getting a lot of roads fixed in Crow Wing County and down in my area. I'm seeing the fruits of that. But I will say, I feel like it's good and bad. And the good is there's some beautiful roads, but the bad thing is like last night I was down by Pine Center and I came back on County Road 8, which was just paved. Beautiful, beautiful road. Boy, I tell you what, when you're driving down a smooth road, you look down and you're going, wow, I'm speeding. I wasn't speeding, but
Sure.
But I will say that,
Sheriff, will you look into that?
yeah. But I will say that you can really get some speed up on those really smooth roads, and you don't even really notice it. I don't know what happened in this accident, and I'm glad we're looking into it. I know that I'm hoping the sheriff. I guess a question for the sheriff. It's going to be your time now. But the chairman, Dave Johnson of Long Lake Town Board, is asking about maybe some more patrols down there. And I know that you're stretched thin and it's difficult, but maybe setting up that trailer for a while with the speed on there wouldn't be a bad idea or something. I just know that the people are really sad. I mean, they've lost a beautiful girl in their neighborhood, and they're really, really concerned, and who knows what happened? It might have just been one of those things. It's an accident, you know, and so, I don't know. It's just a sad, sad deal. I'm really troubled by it, so.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Coring, if I could, I spoke to Dave prior to the letter coming in, and I actually encouraged him to write a letter and certainly include you as a commissioner of that area to help bring light to this, you know, the tragedy that we saw involving local people, you know, from our community, and not that it would make it any less impactful if it was a visiting person, but it hits home, you know, when it's one of our own people here. And I shared with Dave as much as I could, and I'll certainly share with you. You know, the investigation's still open. We're still looking into it. We will certainly share the facts when we can with it. And like Tim mentioned also, you know, there's a lot of dynamics that happen behind the scenes, and that's how we see our road improvements in the area. One area that we just wrapped up, and I'm so happy that we got it done, Tim, is Wise Road Beaver Dam is up and running again. That was a constant crash area for us. And the other one that we see is the 3 and 4 junction, which I'm hoping is on the list for future action here with a similar plan if I had my 2 cents worth in it. But that's where we look to make the improvements. Thompson Road, we've had a number of crashes on Thompson Road, but we've had a number of crashes on all of our roads. And I can't speak to the specifics of this, but yes, it is on our radar. I spoke to Dave that we will certainly get extra cars down there. You know, it's a lot of areas. You know, we grew up and it was myself and my parents and my siblings and one neighbor surrounded by cabins and people that we saw 3 months of the year. And now there's a number of residential people where my parents live. So we are seeing, you know, increase in traffic and increase in building, you know, as the request came in earlier today, throughout our areas. You know, our lakes are full, so now people are building in the beautiful country spots. So our area is seeing more traffic. And like I shared with Dave, it's just, and you mentioned it, you know, our vehicles now are so quiet and they're so smooth that you literally can be looking down and not myself, but to say, just to speak for Paul, you can look down and find that you're far above what you're supposed to be. And it does happen. But everyone is in such a hurry to go nowhere. And that's what we got to get out of. And that is a personal responsibility. There's nothing that law enforcement, you know, we can certainly make people aware. We can write them a citation. We can hold them accountable. But it's a personal responsibility to realize that, why do I need to pass, you know, this farmer? I'm going to turn, you know, I'm turning a half mile down the road. I don't need to pass this car. And have that personal responsibility to just really capture what you're, you know, what you're going to gain. And at $6 a gallon or $5.50 a gallon, it just costs a lot more money when you push the pedal.
I would just say that you're exactly right. I don't know why everybody's in such a hurry. Right down past Chelsea's place, I was coming home, going south, and there's a semi, and there's 5 cars behind. There's a lady passing over here. I literally had to take the ditch, and the semi moved over this way. Otherwise, it would have been a head-on collision. Right. Just a few days ago. So I don't know what everybody's hurry is, but.
I guess the biggest thing that I take out of this conversation exactly, which is exactly the point that I wanted to help Dave with and Long Lake Township with, is just to get the messaging out that we all see the impact that this has on us, you know, as a community, you know, and we're thinking of the family and we're thinking of everyone involved when we do move forward, when we work with County Highway and everyone else to wrap up these investigations and to see what can and maybe will be done out there.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
You guys. Real quick before we move on, Tim, you've got a couple guests. Would you like to introduce them?
Excellent. Well, come on up here, guys. I just want to quickly introduce you to our 2 high school interns. And they're doing a great job for us. It's their 4th week here. Just right here to my right is Caleb Toffness. He is going to be a senior at Pequot Lakes High School, and Daniel Kropp, who is going to be a senior at Brainerd High School. And I tell you, as we interviewed these young men and others while seeking them, the interviewers looked at each other and said, man, when I was a senior, there's no way that I was intelligent and as articulate as these gentlemen. I'm going to probably make them blush, but they're doing a great job. We're introducing them to surveying. They're out counting some of these roadways. They're going to help us out scoping some of our upcoming jobs and kind of getting a feel of what civil engineering and civil engineering technology is about. And maybe someday they'll come back and work for us. I just want to go back to our first high school intern, Eric Hughesby. Eric Hughesby started off just like these two gentlemen as a high school intern from Pequot Lakes 4 years ago, and he's come back from college every year since then to work as a summer worker out on construction. So he helped build the roundabout and Beaver Dam and Wise Road. And so that is some of the value we're getting back from these, and maybe someday you'll come back. So
They look like engineers.
Are doing a great job.
They look like engineers.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but well, thank you for.
Thank you, and again, welcome, guys.
Oh, another thing, I bring them here because I think just seeing government work, we did talk about highway stuff here, but I wasn't sure. But I've also get them around to meetings and things like that to see what government's about. And I think there's a lot of value, and I don't think they teach that in schools. And to see how it's actually working on the ground is very important, I think. And so that's why they're here. You might see them again in the future.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, can I ask you a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Last November, we had a fatality on County Road 3 and 127.
Yes.
And you applied rumble strips. Is that something that could be done on Thompson Road?
The location, thank you for the question, but the location of this particular crash was not at an intersection. It was in a roadway segment between. But that is one response that we'll do at intersections, maybe to raise awareness if we think running the stop sign was a contributing factor.
Mr. Chair, another thought just came to my mind for those roads in the south part of the county. If we didn't fix them and we just let them deteriorate, would that slow down the speed on any of those roads?
Thank you very much.
Don't answer that, Tim.
No answer needed. I think you made your point.
We're going to move on.
That's not in my bag.
Let's move on. All right, land services, Ryan.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. We're looking for some direction on how to handle deer carcasses at the landfill. So if you recall, in 2019, we had a positive CWD test in a wild deer, the first one in Crow Wing County. And we started incinerating all the deer carcasses that came to the landfill. And we're accepting them from hunters for free at no charge to keep those deer carcasses off the landscape and get them into the landfill, because those prions that cause CWD can live on the landscape for decades. And so we're trying to reduce the potential spread of CWD. We've been incinerating the deer carcasses since 2019. And in December of 2021, there was another positive test of a wild deer out there. So it's lingering around out there, the CWD disease. And we're looking for direction on how to move forward. The incineration's been working really well, but in the summer it can get hot, it can get smelly, and if the direction is to maintain the status quo, we'd like to get a cooler unit set up out there where the disposal site is. And that's up to $5,000 to $10,000. We think that would cost to move forward. So we just like to have a discussion on that and see what you'd like us to do.
Mr. Chair, and to the rest of the board, Commissioner Hogan and I are on the Solid Waste Committee, so we've had some thorough conversations about this, and tell me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, but we felt like it was important to bring this to the rest of the board to decide. I am actually in favor of not doing this anymore. I don't know where Commissioner Hoag's at, and so I think we couldn't really agree at this meeting on whether or not we should continue to do this. Ryan, if you could just talk about other landfills, like I think in Wisconsin we talked about that, nobody else is doing this. I think it was, Crow Wing County was, I guess, trying to be out of an abundance of caution doing this, but for $40,000 a year, I personally don't know that we need to keep doing it, but I'll leave it up to the rest of the board. Mr. Chair, I don't know what comments you had about our solid waste committee meeting.
Well, I think you addressed it well. There's a number of ways we could do this. One would be continue with the cooler system so that, we're not having staff and workers work around those deer that are baking in the sun. Or we could, again, just maybe do it during the deer hunting rifle season, and everything in the summer would just go in the landfill, like I believe other landfills do, and capture the bulk of the deer carcasses during that time from our processors and hunters, and that would maybe reduce the cost some if we just do a certain time frame to incinerate them, or we could quit totally. Again, we wanted to get everybody involved in this decision, given it is costing the county some dollars to do it.
If I could add, either way, we're accepting the deer and we're, making sure CWD is off the landscape. It's just those unknown what-if concerns about what if these prions that cause CWD get into our landfill leachate, and then what if the MPCA could start testing for that, or there could be other potential unknowns that are probably low risk, but that's the, I guess, one of the concerns. But
so I guess we open it up for thoughts.
Mr. Chair, Ryan, is anybody following with this? Is the MPCA doing any studies on this, or the University of Minnesota doing anything on this? When I see only 2 positive cases since 2017, it just doesn't seem like a lot of need for this or concern. And I know initially when we had that deer farm north of town, that's what got everybody concerned. And certainly southeast Minnesota has that going on in their area. But I guess we don't see a great need in our area. But if the MPCA comes back and says, wow, you guys aren't doing your job, that's going to be a problem for us.
And the MPCA's actually told us we can put the deer right in the landfill. We can't knowingly put a CWD positive deer in the landfill, but we can just put deer as they come in the landfill.
So if you know it's positive, what do you do with it?
Well, that usually doesn't happen because the hunters usually takes a while to get the test back. So they'll process the deer and bring it to us before they even get the test back, oftentimes.
So today it would be incinerated.
Correct.
As the current arrangement, but.
Yeah.
I just don't, Steve, I think you're on the same track I am. I think the risk is so low that, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to make sense spending $40,000. And I don't think the DNR, if they pick up a deer, they're not incinerating them, are they, right?
No, I believe we're the only ones that are doing the incineration in Minnesota. I know there's other landfills that don't accept deer because of CWD down in the southeastern part of the state. They have, they haul their leachate to wastewater treatment plants, and those wastewater treatment plants have concerns about this. Whereas we currently spray our leachate on our land application field, so we kind of manage it ourselves. That could be a potential issue if we ever haul to Brainerd or St. Cloud wastewater treatment plants. Then there could be something there if we're taking the deer and they have a concern. But
Mr. Chair, I may be on a totally different page, but an article from the DNR dated December 6, 1921, talks about a newly discovered instance of chronic wasting disease in the Brainerd Lakes area. And so it says that will result in 3 more years of sampling and other disease management efforts. So it's not gone from this area. That was just this last December.
2021.
2021.
Okay.
So, I...
What you said. 1921.
No.
1921.
1921, no,
That was
2021.
quite a while ago.
That was a while ago. Sorry about
Steve was
that.
county commissioner.
I was here. I was here.
Yeah, but this is just from this previous December, so we are going to have 3 more years of sampling and other disease management efforts, so I think we should be part of that effort. I mean, yes, it's minor, but still, this could become...
Exactly. I think the potential for this to turn into something possibly exists. So, anybody else? I believe Ryan is looking, are you looking for direction today, right?
Correct, if we should.
We're not looking for,
Yep.
well, we can entertain a motion, I
It's a
guess.
board action, and so...
Mr. Chair, there is no recommended board action today. The question, I think, is, do you want us to put this on your agenda? And do you have a preference on which direction you would like us to go? Or would you like to think about it for a while?
Well, I think I usually make my direction clear, and I'm not in favor of this, but if the rest of the board wants to do that, that's up to them.
Mr. Chair, and I would, and this is unusual, but I am of the same opinion that Commissioner Corning is. At this
Holy
point.
cow.
There's a first. Yeah.
We've had
Well,
a lot
do
of
we-
firsts recently.
I think if we had
Would
one
we
more-
want to put it on the next agenda as an item, and then we could take, that'll give others maybe time to do some research.
Time to
and
think, and if you have any questions that you would like additional information on, we could happily help with that. What I would say is I don't think any of us have a crystal ball on what's going to happen with CWD, and so it's a risk management decision with imperfect information about what's going to happen in the future.
Mr. Chair, the only thing is I think it's kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a time-sensitive thing. I mean, I don't know that we can keep dragging it on because deer are still getting hit and the highway department is probably hauling them in there and they're sitting there rotting and stinking and, Marv has got to get them incinerated or the talk of putting them in some kind of a cooler unit. So I don't know that we want to drag it on and on. I mean, I just don't think we could come to an agreement at the Solid Waste Committee, so that's why we brought it here. So, I don't know, if we could, I sure would like to get some direction today, but not to force anybody to make a decision.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I can, I think that, we are starting to make this much bigger than maybe what the issue really is. And I think that we have to be so careful of that. And so, definitely probably should bring it back to the next meeting if we were to need initial issues now, because the deer are coming from all over the county too. It isn't only where the deer farm was. And so if we're only seeing the issue be of the CWD coming from that area where the deer farm was, then maybe we're kind of overreacting to it a little bit, because the $40,000 is a lot of money. And if we're going to invest more into it.
Right.
Correct.
So, am I hearing that we would include this on the next agenda as an action item?
That would be your preferences. I think I hear someone saying they prefer to act today, and then I'm not sure if you would like to postpone it or act today.
Mr. Chair, I would move that the county board cease the incineration of deer carcasses at the Crow Wing County landfill.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Coring. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Brecken. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I don't have enough information, I don't think, to make the decision to cease.
All right.
Thank you.
There's your direction.
Motion pass?
Motion passes.
Thank you.
County Sheriff.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good morning. I asked John Bowen to come over this morning and to give you an update. Mr. Hull made reference to it earlier. The declaration, which was already approved, but just to give you an update on the storms, we've just been walloped lately with one after another for storms. And I know we've had quite an area hit. So with that, I guess what I'd ask is, John, if you want to give your report, and then we can
Sure.
certainly try to answer any questions you guys have. So thank you.
Yep. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board of Commissioners. Kind of go back, let's go back to Memorial Day storm, May 30th. We're actually currently this morning sitting down with the state, our cities and townships, and doing their applicant briefing on that. Our numbers came in right around 620,000 for that. Excuse me. And that is going to be, originally it was going to be a state disaster declaration, and at 9 o'clock this morning they told me they're going to go federal with it. So that takes a lot, helps us out a lot, especially our small cities and townships, because there's no match anymore. The June storm, we're still getting numbers on that, and we're going to be probably roughly the same. But then we had the 22nd and the 23rd, we had weather then as well, and they're going to bring those into that June 20th event. So that will be a state for sure for us, because we met our threshold. We know that right now from our co-ops and our highway department, but there's still a lot of cleanup across the county. You know, you go up by Greer Lake Campground up there in the north east part of the county. I don't know when that's going to get opened up. They closed it down. There's trees down all over in there, and I know they had a lot of trees down in the Kenino Rec area, but it's kind of different than the 2015 and 16 storms because it's spread out countywide. It's not one geographical location, so it takes the highway department and public works and our contractors a lot more time to clean up because they're driving all over. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with storms. It's been a busy month. I mean, there's a lot going on, and it doesn't look like it's going to be ended anytime soon for our cleanup. Is there any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, not a question, just I also serve on Crowing Power's Board of Directors, and your name came up, and they were bragging you up about how good you are of helping with your community partners, and Crowing Power especially, to help get some either state or federal money to help, because it's, I know, I can't remember exactly, but there was one where there was actually 12 poles right in a row that were just snapped right off. And these poles, they can go from anywhere from, you know, could be $1,000, depending on how big they are, you know. So Crowing Power has had a lot of costs of poles broken off, and they're very appreciative of you, John, of the work that you're doing, and also to include them in the numbers of getting reimbursement. So just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you.
On behalf of Crowing Power. So.
Yeah, I've been in communication with all the co-ops in the county or that served Crow Wing County, and for the most part, all of them had some sort of damages from these storms.
Mr. Chair, I think the public may also notice that we declare emergencies more frequently than we used to, and that is a result of the passage of the state program a couple of years back that allowed for 75% reimbursement. That's relatively new, and it was that law that allowed co-ops to get in on reimbursements. Not for-profit companies, but so electrical co-ops, CTC, telephone co-ops, Mille Lacs Energy Co-op, those kind. And so that's why folks may be seeing, we declare this more frequently because there is a new state program that helps reimburse 75% of the costs. John's correct, if it becomes a federally declared emergency, then there's 100% reimbursement of the costs. So we're doing this more frequently because of storm events that did not used to meet the federal threshold, but now meet this new state threshold and qualify for reimbursement, at least partial reimbursements.
And then, Mr. Chair and Tim, so unless we or the board chair declares an emergency, we are not eligible to get reimbursement.
That is correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, that also allows for some other things to happen, like we'll be sending out a press release or some social media stuff to ask about damages, specifically homeowners that are uninsured. FEMA wants to know that. So, and the state wants to know that in case they open up an SBA loan program. And we're seeing more and more houses that are major damages with trees on them or trees going through the roofs. So we'll be putting something out for people to report to us so we can kind of get an idea if we're eligible for an SBA loan program for them.
Good, good. Any other questions for John?
So, Mr. Chair, you have in front of you today for your consideration a declaration of local emergency. The way it is currently written, it allows for the board chair to make that declaration. If you wish to have it be board action, then I would suggest that it be modified. Be it resolved, the Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners declares Crow Wing County in a local emergency for conditions resulting from the June 20th, 22 event. And if you want to have an expiration date on it, that would be fine. The chair only has authority to do it for 3 days, but that's all we need.
Okay.
I'm okay with the chair doing it unless.
So am I.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if you can just stop in and we will have you sign the necessary paperwork after the board meeting.
All right.
Thank you,
Well,
Mr. Chair and Board of Commissioners.
You bet.
Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Anything else, Scott?
No, if you have any questions for me, I'd certainly try to answer them the best I could.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions for Sheriff? Nope. County Attorney?
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the County Board. I do have one thing for you today. I know that I believe Tim's been keeping you advised of the current status of the Hideaway Bay Plat litigation that we had Paul Reavers representing us on. That case has now been resolved. There's just one thing left to do on it, which is to get the actual plat itself vacated. The original petitioners are filing a petition with the district court to get that plat vacated. The only involvement Crow Wing County would still have with this is that I will, on behalf of the county, filing a document with the court indicating that we agree with the vacating of the plat. Since the litigation is concluded on consultation with Paul Reavers, he thought it'd be better if I did it than to have him do it. So I'll get that done here yet this week, or as soon as it's filed and we're able to do it, and that, once that's vacated, that would resolve that case. So I don't need any action, I just want to give you an FYI so you're still in the loop on that case. That's all I had for today. I certainly answer any questions if anybody had any questions for me.
Mr. Chair, you have an update on the Cartway as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you, I forgot about that. I've been in conversation with both the attorneys for the Cartway. One individual who had a medical issue is still out with the medical issue. Both parties have agreed to ask that it be continued again. I had some conversation with the one landowner other than the main two parties that I have contact information with, and asked that individual to share that with all the other landowners. He said he would. Again, my understanding is that this matter should resolve as soon as we can get everybody together in one room. So my recommendation is maybe if we just continue it again for 2 more weeks. I may be coming back and asking to continue it again, but at least it'll keep it in front of you and you'll know where we're at that way. So that would be my request, Mr. Chairman, is that you just continue the Nelson Reserve Cartway matter for 2 more weeks. You can just put it under my time on the agenda if you want to, and if we have something of substance, I can adjust that.
Okay, that sounds good. Any questions for Don?
Mr. Chair, just so we have a...
I'm resisting.
Or comments?
No, I'm going to resist. I'm going to,
Boy,
not going to comment.
You got off easy, Don.
I guess. Mr. Chair, just to keep a nice clean record in the board's minutes, do you want to have a motion to continue it for 2 weeks? Because someone looking in your minutes otherwise sees it and then it just dead ends.
I think that's a good idea.
I'll make the motion to continue the Cartway discussion until our next board meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Coring. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Teresa, I'll communicate that to the attorneys and to the landowner I have contact for so that they know. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. County Administrator.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, there was a senior management team meeting back on June 20th. Most of the discussion was about the 2023 budget process. We're right in the throes of that, so the capital equipment plan will be coming to you very shortly as part of the budget process for you to go through those and review whichever ones you might have questions on. So we spent a fair amount of time talking about that. I do expect that we will have a recommended CIP for you that is within the budget's parameters. So I don't see us recommending something that's going to cause a budget strain. We are still seeing some supply chain issues that are affecting our ability to deliver some projects. We're also seeing some pricing in the construction trades that is certainly giving us some pause. And so I think we're being quite judicious about what we are suggesting we can deliver. And so we'll move that through the process, but the senior management team spends a fair amount of time in that budget process and trying to figure out how can we meet the targets that you guys have set for us. We also had some discussion about the frontline worker pay update. There is a portal that the state of Minnesota has for frontline workers. And so that has been opened up. We talked about our peer support program. We're having really good use of the peer support program, which I think is a good indication, and it should help with whatever personal issues spill over into the workplace so that people can get tapped into good resources to help with those personal issues so that when they come here, they are more focused on what we need. And then we talked about intern plans for 2023, and Tim brought up the two that he has. And I just wanted to highlight for you how important internships have become to the county in terms of our recruitment efforts. We have folks from that are deputies today that came to us through internships. We have folks who are assistant county attorneys who came to us through internships. We have social workers. We have engineering aides who came to us through internships. We have used it as an effective recruitment strategy in a very challenging employment market. And so when Tim tells these two young men, come back and get a job, he's not kidding. And so we have made very effective use of internships. And we moved upstream in the recruiting for future county openings. I think it's a great opportunity for folks to get a chance to see what working in county government looks like before they maybe dive in head first. It gives us a chance to take a look at them too, to see if they got the right skills, talents, and abilities that we need in order to meet the public's mission. That is what we discussed at senior management team. I'm happy to answer questions about that or anything related to county government.
Mr. Chair, County Administrator, any possibility that I don't know if anybody else wants it, but obviously we're going to get the list of projects that have been winnowed down by the senior management team. I guess I'd like to see what didn't make the cut.
Oh.
Is that a possibility?
Well, I think so. I think it is. So let me see what I can do.
Because I'd like to look through there and see if
Good question.
Yeah. I have all good questions.
Of course you do.
Don't scare our interns away, Paul. Any other questions for Tim? Is that all you got, Tim? Okay.
That's all I got.
Additional business?
Mr. Chair,
What is it today?
Monday's July 4th. I think we should encourage everybody to celebrate. We want to welcome our guests into our county, but we want them to be safe. And let's just remember that as we're out on the road. We talk about speed, we talk about accidents on both our lakes and our roads. So I would encourage people to be very careful out there. Tina Ebertowski, I think I said that correctly, sent out a flyer about July 22nd, being a day to celebrate our veterans. I think there'll be some speakers here in front of the courthouse, and then they'll move over to the Arboretum for a walk, ride, game time with children of veterans. So if people have an opportunity to get out to see that and participate and show our appreciation for the veterans, they should do that. I have nothing else.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. I just want to also say that I know that Commissioner Franzine and the county administrator got to go out and have a pretty extensive tour out at Brainerd International Raceway, and I sometimes think we forget about how much of an economic driver we talk about trying to bring businesses to Brainerd. We already have one here. I think it was Lake Gem, and I think you said that there was 15,000 people there, and there was the campers. There was campers. These people are buying food, they're buying booze, they're buying everything in our community. That you know, it reminds me of when the first job I ever had was at the old Holiday Inn, which was the place in Brainerd. That's when the road came through there. And Paul Newman was racing at that time. I was like 15. I didn't know who Paul Newman was. but I saw him briefly. If I would have known who he was, I probably just said, here, autograph my back. But I just want to stress that Brainerd International Raceway brings in so much economic and money and visitors to our area that I just think that we have to appreciate those guys up there. So, thanks.
All right. Any more additional business?
Well, I think that, they had 15,000 for Lakes Jam, but she reported to us that they had 20,000 the week before for the races, so,
No kidding.
yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable.
All right.
That's a third of the population of our county.
Yes, it is.
In a small area. No, I'll tell you what, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Rosemary, Commissioner Franzine. The new race that they added was last week, and they didn't know what to expect, but it ended up being one of their bigger weekends. And Christy's been a great partner. Don and I worked pretty extensively with her when the COVID was here and everything else. And, we get our local complaints of, well, the traffic's bad. Well, the traffic's bad every day. From Wednesday through Sunday, the traffic's bad, whether the track is busy or whether the track isn't busy. But, it brings a lot of people into our area on a consistent weekend. Even their smaller weekends are thousands of people, so it does add a lot of people to our communities. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Coring, second by Commissioner Franzine to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.